Afternoon, everyone. My name is Kapil Nakra, and I'm one of the co-founders of Digital Vidya. Today we have a very interesting session. The title of the session is Content, the True Makers or Breakers of Social Media Success. Internally at Digital Vidya, we believe that if you're running a social media campaign and you're not spending 80% of your efforts in the content piece, then you're not giving not giving justice to the campaign. So today's session is actually about insights into how to use content effectively for promoting brand on social media. And we have with us Sandhya Sadananda. She has more than a decade experience in the communication industry. Sandhya is a head Maven at Windchimes Communication and heads the client servicing for the organization. And she has served clients like Infosys, HDFC, Bonds, ITC hotels. So really delighted to have you here, Sandhya. Welcome.
Hi.
Yeah. So now without taking any further time, I'll just to create the logistics first before I hand it over to Sandhya. This session will go on for 1 hour, and we will have a presentation for about half an hour. All of you are currently muted. So if you have any question, just type it down in the question panel that is in the control panel of on your screen, and we'll take up all the questions after the presentation is over. So yeah, that's it. Over to you, Sandhya. You can now start the session.
Hi. So thanks so much for the introduction, Kapil. So just to add on to what Kapil has said, I'm one of the co-founders of Windchimes Communications, a company which was founded by me and my business partner, Nimesha. We both come with experience in PR and marketing, and social media was a natural progression in our career for us. We've been fortunate in the last 5 years that we've set up Windchimes to having been able to work with a bunch of clients who you can see on your screen right now. So we've had the good fortune of working across sectors, across clients, and a lot of the learnings that I'm going to be sharing today with respect to content is courtesy of having worked with these clients and have learned with these clients along the way. Before I start, I'd just like to kind of focus on what is the agenda going to be for today. So as Kapil very rightly said, social media is, a good social media specialist or communication professional should be actively looking at content, and that should be a focus area because that truly makes a difference to whether your brand or the client that you're representing is going to succeed with the social media strategy or not. So while it's all very good to have a great strategy in place, what differentiates a brand today is the execution and the content. So you need to have great content which will set you apart. So what we're going to do today is one, figure out what the different kinds of content that is available on social media, or that a brand manager or a communication specialist can put out on social media. How do you go about customizing content? What are some of the golden rules that you need to keep in mind with respect to content, and how do you get your tonality right? What I'm also going to be doing is focusing on a case study towards the end, which is from one of our own clients, and talk about how did we go about achieving the objective through different types of content, along with some results for it. So before I begin, since a lot of you are already well versed on social media, I'd just like to focus on what, according to us at Windchimes, are some of the keys to be successful on social media, which also then applies to content. So one is always about building value for the community. So even when you're writing content, it has the context that one needs to keep in mind is that is it going to be adding value back for my target audience or for my follower or for my fan on the page. If it's not, then it's not. It has no place as a part of your content mix or as a part of your strategy. So that's one key question that we need to ask us as communicators. Are we going to be building value for the community with the content that we're developing? The other one is going to be about how are we going to allow users to generate content. So content is not just about what we bring out, but are we facilitating or are we allowing our users to also generate content? Because it's a collaborative platform. That's the beauty of social media. It allows for a dialogue. So are we giving users a chance to generate content? The third aspect is listening to people's point of view, which also translates as communicators for us in terms of the engagement that we do, in terms of the dialogue that we build. So by listening to them, by taking part in the conversations, we ensure affinity on social media. And the fourth one, which is a lot like generating content, is about seeking user participation, getting them to participate, getting them to build content on our platforms, providing them a facility to do that. So having covered the keys according to us to success on social media, I'd like to go on to say what is the kind of role that content plays. So social media is about, it's a mix, it's a combination of content, great context, building the right kind of connections, and hence community. And how do you go about making those connections? Content becomes your key bridge to making those connections. So we'll go on further in the presentation to see how do you use content to build those connections, right? So what makes content work on social media, or what are the three elements that you need to keep in mind, is who's your target audience, what's the kind of brand messaging that you're looking at, and what is the brand messaging, and what is the tonality and personality. So it's important to have these three things in mind, because if you don't have any one of these elements present, your content strategy would go all wrong. So it's very important to have all these three things in mind when you go about building your content buckets. Going on to who is your audience, you need to keep in mind what is the age of the person that you're talking to, what's the gender that they come from, what is the socio-economic class. Now this is important because if you are a fast track, you're talking to somebody who's 16 to 20, you're talking to males and females, you're talking to a slightly more evolved audience, so your language is going to be very different. However, if you're going to be talking for, say, a bank, say a bank or an HDFC bank, clearly talking to somebody who's 25 plus, who's a far more older audience, evolved tastes in terms of they're a far more mature audience. So the kind of language that you'd possibly use for a fast track, which would be much more colloquial, which would be much more informal, might not necessarily work with, say, a bank. Then it comes down to your geographic targeting. So which country are you talking to? Which region are you talking to? That will also help you customize your content in terms of, do you want to add some local flavor into your content? It will make a difference to that. Also, geographic targeting also helps you take into account a lot of the social realities there. So certain things which are taboo to a particular region, you might not then incorporate into your content. So a little example of that would be if you're talking to the Indian audience and you know for a fact that they're very sensitive when it comes to religion. Most countries are, but Indians being particularly so, you would stay far away from, say, religion and things like that when you build your content. Then it comes to psychographic targeting. So what are the kind of likes and dislikes, what kind of online behavior do they have, what is the kind of attitude that they have, the levels of awareness and knowledge that they have will help you build your content. Now, the reason I say this is because we've seen this across our clients. So we handle about 3 beauty clients currently in our portfolio, but the audience for each of them are at different evolution stages. So when I'm talking to somebody for pawns, my whole, and I know that I'm talking to somebody who's more curly, who's more mushy in her attitude. I'm going to be talking about more romance and love and more girly kind of content. But if I'm talking to, say, a Be Beautiful, I'm talking to a more evolved audience, so I can talk about higher level of products, a higher level of services, beauty services in that sense. So it's important for you to understand insights into your audience, so it's easier for you to build content that they can relate to and hence respond back. So the second thing that we come to is brand position messaging. So as communication professionals on social media, it's important for us to understand the brand that we represent completely. What's the kind of vision that they have, the positioning that they are currently doing, and not just on social media, but across all communication platforms. So one thing we need to make sure is that we don't treat social media in isolation. It's not an isolated media. It has to be in sync with all the other communication devices that or mediums that a brand is using. So it has to be, you can't be adopting one kind of tone or language or messaging on social media, but the other mediums are saying something else altogether. So that is very, very important and key to keep in mind. So what is the brand saying? What's the kind of personality that they're adopting? What are the kind of products and services that they're talking about? One needs to completely understand that. Now moving on to how do we go about creating content. So I'm just going to quickly take you through a content life cycle. So content for online, it needs to be obviously well written, it needs to be crisp, it needs to be dynamic, and the most important thing, you need to make sure that it's share worthy, because only if it is share worthy will you be able to create some kind of virality for your brand. So to quickly take through what a content cycle looks like. So one is that you gather content. So you can either create or gather content, and it's important for you to be monitoring what is the flavor of the day or the flavor of the hour in that sense. So what are the trends that people are talking about? What are the themes that people are talking about? What is capturing people's attention today? So to give you a current example, when the Section 377 news recently came out, Tanishq did a brilliant job of capturing the current trend and riding on it. So within a day, they had a beautiful ad out which had a pair of earrings, and it said, two of a kind is always beautiful, or something along those lines, which very beautifully incorporated what they are as a brand, and at the same time talked about something that was very current and that was very now, right? So once you gather that content, curating it, by arranging it around relevant themes, putting the right kind of tags to it so that it's easier to kind of find, then actually writing the content. So when you write the content, ensuring that and content can be different types. It could be blog posts, it could be articles, it could be updates, it could be tweets. So ensuring that when you write it, it is enriched with the right kind of words, which makes it easy to find, easily connectable, and finally publishing and sharing it. So this is the entire content cycle that you need to kind of keep in mind. When we talk about tonality and attitude, there are different types of content that you could have. You could have content that is very formal and crisp, which a lot of corporates adopt, or a lot of institutions that are fairly serious in their outlook. So this could be, we have an example here from Microsoft. So here the content will not be necessarily, while it's still friendly and human, but it's still going to have some element of formality, because that's how the brand is. Then you could have content that is quirky and fun, and now this works great with, say, lifestyle brands, youth brands, brands like a Fast Track or a comedy store. This works beautifully and it invites a lot of engagement. Then you could have girly and mushy kind of content, which works great for beauty brands, because this is the kind of content that elicits a lot of response from the audience. And then there is techie and geeky, which is very information kind of content, and it's very straight-laced, very direct, but that's the kind of communication that the audience appreciates. They don't want, while they do want friendly tonality, they don't want too much layering, they don't want too much going and beating around the bush to get that content. They want it very, very straight, very simple, very straightforward. So content could be different types. You could have Facebook updates, you could have tweets, you could have Foursquare tips, you could have beautifully made infographics. So infographics are a great way to communicate in a visual manner key facts about your brand. You could do it to convey serious things. Like for example, this one is about for investors. You could have great infographics to talk about even fun things for that matter, trends that you want to kind of highlight on behalf of your client. Infographics are great. Here's an example of SlideShare where you can even use presentations to talk about your client in a great way. So this is the channel for Cisco. It's a pro channel by Cisco on SlideShare, and they use documents and presentations in a great way to build thought leadership. Again, just because it's thought leadership and because it's serious does not mean that it can't be interesting in its execution. So you need to keep in mind that formal or crisp or informative does not translate into uninteresting. It can always stay in the interesting zone. Right, here is some example of content on Google Plus. Now, since Google Plus is great from SEO point of view, it's great to have content on Google Plus, which is more sales driven because it shows up on search very well, right? To add more to the golden rules of content, your content should be short and crisp, and this is something that you yourself would identify with, given the fact that there is so much information flow coming to us on an everyday basis. We don't have too much time to go through content that is lengthy. So it should be short and crisp and befitting the platform that it is on. So if it is Facebook, not more than 90 characters. If it's Twitter, not more than 140 characters, and obviously there is a limitation there. If it is a YouTube video, we would not suggest more than 2 or 3 minutes. If it's a LinkedIn update, not more than 2 or 3 lines. So that's the kind of thing that you need to keep in mind. Even if it is a blog post, try not make it more than 500 words because honestly people don't have the patience to read more than that. So keep it short and crisp to ensure that people will go through your content and hence engage much better with it. Visual elements always help to capture a lot more attention. So excuse me. So with the Facebook update, can you put a great visual to go with it? If it's a Google Plus update, it's a great visual that can do a lot more justice to the update. So look at ways to add visual elements. Being present and being relevant. What I mean by this is, if you understand the life cycle of your consumer, or if you understand what your consumer is going through right now, you can pick things that the consumers find that is relevant to the consumer at this point of time. What is it that he's thinking about? What is it that is bothering him? What is it that he is interested in right now? And ride on that so that it becomes that much easier for you to connect with him. And geo-targeting content, since a lot of the platforms allow you to geo-target content, it's a great way to ensure that you're reaching out to a certain set of audience if the message is only meant for that set of audience. The other golden rule of content which we strongly feel is give courtesy where it is due. So if you're going to be using images from somewhere, give the courtesy to them. If you're using quotes by a particular famous personality, give courtesy there. If there are interesting blog links that you're going to be pasting, give courtesy to that particular blogger. It's just manners in the offline world that you would replicate in the online world. Some other rules of content are update regularly. So we do tend to see a lot of platforms where a brand would start off a platform and then they would not. So you start off a Facebook page and you update regularly for a week and then you disappear from the platform for 3 weeks. Or you started a SlideShare channel and you update your last document or presentation that you shared on that was 3 months back. That's not acceptable when it comes to social media. So you need to, but when you plan your content strategy, you also need to keep in mind the fact that you are going to be updating content regularly, and you need to be ready to develop that content on a regular basis. Accept and listen to feedback. That's very key again, because a lot of brands are not really known to take feedback very well. But the very fact is that by agreeing to go on social media, you've kept yourself open for feedback and for any kind of comments that you would get from your fan followers and readers. So it's important for you to keep an open mind about any kind of feedback that you will get to your content. View it in a proactive, mature manner, and use that to better your own content. And acknowledging, obviously, actions of your fans and members is key to your social media success. Sorry. I'll briefly touch upon YouTube. So YouTube, don't make your videos longer than 2 or 3 minutes unless the subject or the subject matter really warrants for a long video. And also, you have to make your first 3 to 5 seconds really count, because people don't have the patience these days. So if you've not been able to capture their attention within the first 3 to 5 seconds, then they're not going to watch the rest of the video. So it's very important for you to get their attention within the first few seconds, and have strong calls to action. So once they've seen your video, what is it that you expect them to do? So give them that kind of direction. Again, videos are a great way to engage, and we don't necessarily need to make videos that are that are cut and dry. So, for example, here are some examples on how even subjects like internet security or dry topics like insurance have been made interesting through the use of videos, through the use of interesting visuals. I'm going to quickly take you all through a case study, and then we can open this up for questions. So we work with Yes Bank, which is one of the younger banks, private sector banks in India. And we did a Saat Ka Sikandar campaign for them. The whole objective of this was, Yes Bank has a USP of a 7% rate of interest, which is a pretty high rate of interest to offer on savings accounts. So the challenge that we had was, when people were aware of the bank, they didn't know the fact that the rate of interest was one of the highest that was being offered by Yes Bank, to the tune of 7%. So the strategy was to develop a campaign that integrated the brand's USP, and at the same time marry it with what our audience was interested in. So keeping 7% in the center of the entire content mix, we went about deciding what are the kind of things that we can talk about. Given the fact that as a bank, the audience that we were talking to was primarily 25 plus and male, we decided that some of the topics that we wanted to weave our 7% into was finance, geography, brain teasers, sports, and current topics, because these would be areas of interest for our target audience. So how did we go about integrating the concept of 7 into our content? So if you were talking about finance and money, this is the way we would do it. So for example, if you look at this word jumble, it asks you to find 7 different Yes Bank saving accounts. So at no point of time did we veer away from what was integral to Yes Bank and its area of business. Or for example, this particular content update, this says this is a series of coins known as the ANA series in 7 valuations. Have you ever seen any of these coins? So we generated a lot of interest, because this kind of content was rare. This kind of content was engaging, and the fact was that it allowed us to talk about 7. It allowed us to bring forth the element of 7 in a far more interesting manner, and not limit it to just talking about the fact that, hey, did you know that we offer a 7% interest rate, because that would not be interesting for anybody, and our content possibilities were, number one, very limited, and we would be alienating a lot of people eventually, or losing their interest. We went about integrating Seven into current topics too, by building conversations around aspects that touch a person's life. So, for example, we talked about the fact that there are 8 variations of Ganpati, the Ashtavinayaks. So, can you find the 7th one in this depiction of the Ashtavinayak? So, in here, the integration of the number 7. Or, we picked on something that was a current topic and talked about the fact that there was a hike that happened in fuel prices. So fuel hike giving you sleepless nights, so earn a higher rate of interest. So basically suggesting to people that you can save money, a higher rate of money, which can then go into the fuel prices in that sense. Then this one integrating into trivia and geography. So talk about places of geographical interest which incorporate the number 7 in it, or talking about which state among the 7 sisters of the Northeast in India has the largest economy, or the fact that the Eiffel Tower is repainted every 7 years. So these kind of interesting things, but keeping in mind the central theme of 7. Then there were various kind of brain teasers that were used to incorporate the element of 7 into the page. Sports, because this is especially relevant to our male audience. So talking about sports victory, again incorporating the number 7 into it. We tied it all of this together with a concept of a Satka Sikandar contest. This was a quiz with the names of movies that have 7 in their title, and you had to answer a series of questions on these movies, and the winners would get prizes. And the lucky one would get a grand prize of a mobile phone. So that was the idea behind this. These are some of the results that we experienced with the Satka Sikandar campaign. Our Facebook fan page rose by 20 times. So we started off the entire thing in a fan base of 1800, and by the time we ended the entire campaign, we were at nearly 40,000. Interactions on the page went up by nearly 750%. The reach of the page also went up by about 70 times. Impressions jumped. The people talking about us on the page went up in a big way. Our contest received nearly 3,000 unique entries. On Twitter, we rose up by about 71% in terms of followers. Our mentions went up by over 15 times. Retweets went up. And the final pudding on the cake was the fact that a lot of the social media, sites like a Lighthouse, really gave us a lot of praise for the concept that we had come up with, the way we had integrated, 7% into content and into concepts that were much more relatable. And finally, our fans, and that for us is really the proof of the pudding, was the fact that the fans themselves acknowledged the fact of 7%. We literally had people tweeting to us saying that considering getting a Yes Bank savings account for their 7% interest. So these are the kind of things that help show that our entire campaign actually worked.
Thanks, Sandhya, for the nice, insightful session. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I cut you short. You were saying something.
No problem. I was just saying that we can open it up for questions right now.
Yeah. So, guys, you can ask questions now. And to start with, I have some questions, Sandhya. And, this is one of the questions I usually face in most of the workshops that we conduct. In order to build engagement, one of the observation is that if it's more like if the positioning is more formal, the engagement is little on the lower side. But if it is more friendly positioning, it's easier to build engagement.
Right.
And while there are brands wherein the brand personality is especially especially the financial domain case, where the brand personality itself is it's more formal. So
Right.
are there ways in which you can take up a sort of a more derived or a friendly positioning if your overall positioning is not that formal, or are there any suggestions in terms of what ways you can take up a positioning, especially for the formal brands? Like, is there a way so that we can take care of the engagement piece as well?
Absolutely. So, we've since we work with about 3 or 4 clients in our portfolio who are from the banking and the financial sector, we've had this challenge about how do you go about making content that, because banks by nature are fairly serious or cut and dry in that sense. So how do you make content that is more engaging? And one of the examples that I've shown obviously is the Yes Bank, where you are communicating something as dry as the fact that we offer a 7% rate of interest. So, taking that and incorporating it into content, making it more interesting has been something that we've been able to do. Or for example, when we work with, let's say, something like a Future Generali, which is in the insurance sector, talking about various aspects of safety, insurance, protection, but doing it in a fun manner, it's easily possible to do. You just need to, I think, work doubly hard. Lifestyle, let's face it, is very easy. It's very, very easy for us to do lifestyle, primarily because by the nature of the sector it is in, content is so much more engaging. But with banks and stuff, yes, you need to work a little harder, but I think it is easy to, I won't say it's easy, it is possible to bring a connection, to bring the fun element or the humanness back.
Got that. So what you recommend is that let's keep the positioning same and take on the challenge of building engagement by bringing in.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You can't be drastically different from what the brand stands for in the offline space, primarily because if you're going to be, then the customer faces a disconnect because you're an X kind of personality on one platform and a Y kind of personality on another platform. So you can't be drastically different, yes, but yes, so the attempt should be to keep it interesting and friendly.
Got that. Or is this something, what Kotak did with having a Subu as a character to sort of bring in more of an informal as well as intellectual conversation? And so do you recommend like bringing in some character helps in case of formal brands, or just going straight away is the best solution?
See characters definitely help. The only flip side I think to characters is that a brand needs to be really invested in that character. That the character can't be, then there's a lot of nurturing that is required. You need to build the character over a period of time. And most brands, I don't think, have the patience to kind of do that. So icons have been built over a period of time. So if you look at the Amul girl, for example, she's a mascot that has been built over some 30, 40 years now, consistently. She's the only piece of communication that's been hammered out, piece after piece of communication, and now she's become so synonymous with the brand. So one really needs to invest in the icon or the mascot, and only then I think it works.
Got that. So it has to be long term. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a few questions. First question is
Sure.
asked from Vivek. He's saying, I think it's in context with the Yes Bank case study. Do you increase the
Right.
fans on the fan page using the paid advertisements, or was it outsourced? I think what he wants to ask is it organic or paid?
Is it organic or inorganic? It was a mix of organic and inorganic. However, our inorganic spends were very, very minimal at that point of time, because given the fact that we were just at 1800, the idea was to try some kind of spends to see the success with it, which would then allow us to take that further and kind of reinforce our faith, both the client and the agencies, that yes, this would work. Plans right now on Yes Bank. But at that point of time, it was a mix of organic and inorganic. Also, another thing that one needs to remember is that you could inorganically grow your fans. However, to keep the engagement on the page, or to sustain a level of engagement, you will always need great content to do that trick for you. Otherwise, what you're going to see is your fans go up, and that's definitely there, but your engagement levels will seesaw drastically. So the moment you have ads, yes, your engagement would go up because that's the nature of inorganic growth. But the moment the ads stop, it would dip drastically, primarily because your content is not working hard enough for you.
Great. Okay, another question is asked from Saurabh. I think it's in context to, you mentioned in one of the rules that you should update content regularly, right? So he
Right.
wants to know how much content push is good per day as a rule. And secondly, is it good to do too many pushes geo-targeting? Like, if, say, I have a brand which has like probably working in 10 cities. So is it okay to do 10 content push simultaneously with geo-targeting? So any tips on that?
So ideally, this is what we recommend to most of our clients. Anywhere from 1 to 2 updates per day on Facebook would be ideal. At max 3, not more than that. And 3 itself, I think, is a push. But 2 updates a day or 1 update a day is great. And obviously, what time do you update, what kind of update is a result of observing your trends over a period of time. So over a period of time, you would know what time works for you best, what kind of content works for you best. So that's what I would recommend on Facebook. Twitter, maybe 4 to 5 updates, tweets a day is good. Again, on Google Plus, 2 to 3 is good. What I meant more from a regularly update is also that if you have a slide share channel, things like Facebook, Twitter, as marketers, we tend to anyway update regularly. But things like YouTube or things like LinkedIn, things like platforms like SlideShare, you don't tend to, because what happens is that you put up a SlideShare, you put up a PPT, and then for 3 months you see absolutely no action. So you need to, or worse, if you have a blog, you need to have some kind of content strategy in mind to say, or a calendar in mind to say that this is the kind of things that I'm going to put up, and I'm going to do it at this frequency. So if you're going to say that I'm going to do one video a month also, that's fine, but as long as that happens, there can't be irregularity in your content update in that sense. Now, coming to his question on geo-targeting, I personally think 10 is too high a number. So maybe, 3 or 4, geo-targeting updates should be good, but that again can't be done, to my mind, too frequently, because then your page tends to look very, very cluttered.
Got it. Great. So another question is asked by Sunandita Roy. She's asking, you mentioned that the blog posts should be within 500 words. However, there
Yeah.
are guest posting blogs wherein the word limits is a minimum of 650 words. So how should we go about that? Yeah.
So, again, I would say that it's a function of also who's guest posting. Or if you have an option to edit it, you should go ahead and do that. If you are the owner of the blog, even if it's a guest post, you need to kind of call the shots in terms of what will affect the stability and engagement of the content, and then accordingly keep that in mind. So 500 to 650 words, or 500 to 700 words is okay, but it largely depends on at the end of the day, the call that you as a communicator to take to say that is that extra 150 words making a difference? Is it going to get my reader to lose interest? And if the answers to that are yes, then I think you should look at the content as a communicator.
Got that. By the way, guys, if you have any follow-up question, just type it down again, and then I'll take that up as well. So the next question is asked by G Nayak. He wants to know that though we agree visual content are more appealing, but empirically have observed that the reach falls significantly, especially on Facebook. Do you agree?
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't have any, historical or number-driven data to agree or disagree with that claim. So I'm not sure about that, about in terms of reach falling because of using visuals. Having said that, what we've seen across brands, especially our lifestyle brands, is that visual content really makes a difference to our engagement levels. Interesting visual elicits a far greater response than just a textual than just textual content. So yes, it might be true depending on the sectors that you're working with or the kind of clients that you're working with, or, that you're representing. However, what we've seen is that visual content really makes a difference to the kind of engagement that you manage to elicit.
Got that. Yeah, so just a follow-up question on this, and that's been one of the challenges that we are dealing with. In last 1 year or so, as far as our digital Vidya page is concerned, what we have seen is that building engagement and reach through non-paid means is becoming much more challenging than a year before. Do you have the similar observation, or do you think that that's not the trend, so we should go back and see if there is something wrong in our strategy?
See, I wouldn't disagree with the fact that it is becoming difficult or tougher on certain platforms, especially Facebook, primarily because of some of the changes that they have put into place now in terms of the limitation that they have brought into reach and things like that, which obviously impacts your engagement because your reach is being limited by the platform itself. Having said that, I think then the challenge as marketeers for us is to make our content that much more exciting, so that you get maximum engagement, derived from the content that goes out. So yes, it is becoming tougher for us as marketeers, but also it becomes more challenging for us because we really need to now start thinking about what kind of content and how are we going to make a content more exciting.
Got it. And is there any recent tips on a particular kind of content that Facebook is favoring in the recent times?
Nothing really that comes to mind in that sense. So what they're pushing for, and I'm sure Kapil you've noticed this also, is that there's a far more emphasis that's now coming up on content that is suggested posts or spending money inorganically or inorganic growth coming through posts and stories. So there's a lot of focus that's happening on that currently.
Okay, great. Okay, so another question. By the way, Amit, you are asking, we ran through the last few slides a little faster, so you want to go through it again. So just for your information, we will be mailing you the recording of the whole session, and I think we'll be also be able to probably give you a link to the PDF of the slides also, and you can go through it sometime later. Sorry, we are asking a question, what kind of a content makes brand recall strong? So any suggestions on that, Sandhya?
There is no one right answer to this. So there are brands internationally, like if you look at Red Bull, for example, all their content is so in sync with the brand philosophy, which is about going out there, testing your limits. So they do talk about feats of courage or feats of bravery that people have done across the globe. They feature a lot of that content through videos and images, and that's the kind of content that gives them a lot of virality that people like engage with. So there is no one formula that says that this is the kind of content that works. I think you just need to be true to understanding what is it that the audience wants, what is the kind of language that they are speaking, what is it that you as a brand want to communicate, and find the right marriage between the two. Otherwise, honestly, there is no formula. I mean, I wish there was a formula. All of us would have been much more happier if there was one. But there is honestly no formula. You just need to kind of get all the elements in place, see what works, and come up with the right formula for yourself as a marketer.
Great. So that's something, there is no direct shortcut, right?
Correct.
So next question is asked by Karen. What she wants to know is, can you give me an example of building engagement for an engineering company? Have you worked with any engineering company that you can?
Yeah, in fact, somebody very close to an engineering company. So this was a company which was in the heating and ventilation and air conditioning industry. So yes, in that sense, engineering. So they had come up with a property which allowed them to talk to young engineers, which allowed young engineers to share their ideas with them. So we used Facebook, quite well to engage with that audience, and then we used Twitter to also engage with influencers, Twitter and blogs to engage with influencers. Having said that, if there's an engineering company and their aim is, one needs to understand what is the objective. Are they looking to engage with potential employees? Then maybe Facebook is a great platform for them to be on because it allows them to showcase their culture, showcase the company very well. If the objective for the company is to showcase thought leadership, then maybe they need to look at SlideShare or LinkedIn. If they're looking at connecting with possible customers, then again LinkedIn is a better platform for them. So that's how they need to kind of look at all the platforms and how does it fit in with your communication objectives. So what is the role that each of the platforms will play?
Great. So the next question is asked by Archana. An interesting question. She wants to know, after Saat Ka Sikandar contest ended, what has been the engagement mode of Yes Bank with the increased fans on Facebook and Twitter? Is it just one campaign to create hype and wait until something new is there to communicate?
No. So I think as marketers, what we need to, and that's something that is imperative for all of us, is to keep coming up with interesting things for the brand across platforms. So one needs to understand that public memory is very short. So one Satka Sikandar is not something that they're going to remember for a long time. So you need to keep coming up with campaigns, with interesting ideas for your clients that will help their fans re-engage with the brand, keep the brand alive and fresh in their heads. So you need to keep coming up with campaigns on a regular basis that will help your brand connect much better and much faster.
Great. So the overall the brand naming and as such should not be campaign specific. That means
should not. Yeah. There has to be an independent content strategy also in place, and in interims you need to keep coming up with campaigns that will help you get better.
Great. So while I'm actually taking up more questions, I'm launching this second poll question. If you're interested in actually taking consulting services from Windchime Communication, just mention yes over here, and someone from Windchimes Communication will call you. So the next question is by Varun Kapoor. He wants to know, are there any guidelines for marketing budget allocation for FB? And and what is the trend you're observing? What percentage is getting spent on social media, specifically on Facebook at this point of time in the industry? It will be good for all of us.
Right. So what we're seeing across the board is increasingly marketers are now, allocating or keeping aside nearly 10% of their marketing budgets on social for digital. I would not say social, for digital. This is a huge jump from what it used to be, say, 2 years back. So nearly 10% in certain sectors, maybe 15 to 20% is being allocated a year mark for digital. Now within digital, I wouldn't honestly be able to put a figure and say that this is what is being used for social or being earmarked for social, because that differs from sector to sector and client to client. Having said that, within that, I would say Facebook is one platform that is, as of now, seeing the largest spends that are being done. That's also by virtue of the fact that it has the highest base as of now of Indians on social media vis-a-vis any other platform. So a large chunk is going on to social onto digital onto Facebook, I would say. While Twitter and all is just about starting to come in, but in terms of like money is being invested in it. But Facebook is definitely miles ahead at this point of time.
Got that. Another question is asked by Uma. She wants to
Mhm.
know, hi Sandhya, anything exciting for content marketers in 2014? Should we gear up for some major changes? So any trend that you're noticing, or since we are about to close 2013,
Sure.
so any suggestions here?
I think what is happening is that content is just. I would say that the importance is coming into it right now. So while for so many years we've been talking about it, the very fact that content is going to be a differentiator is being acknowledged and fully accepted now. So till maybe for the last couple of years, the entire focus had been on getting your presence right, getting your numbers up, getting the next number of followers on Twitter, getting the next number of fans on Facebook. But now the whole idea is that how do you get your content right across these platforms? How do you get your platforms to talk to each other with this kind of content? So I think it's becoming very, very key, and I think people who are into content manufacturing are going to increasingly see themselves playing a big role in the year 2014, because content is going to what is going to differentiate a brand, because the numbers game has already been played. Everybody is there in millions right now. All the big brands are there in millions already on these platforms. But now the question is, how do you use that millions, and how do you get that base of millions to, to kind of, how do you leverage that base of millions? And the only way to do that is by differentiated content, which is the only thing that is going to make you stand out vis-a-vis a competition. So that is going to be, it's going to be exciting, because it'll really differentiate who's going to be the leaders in this space now by virtue of the kind of content that they build. And content, again, let me just remind you, will not possibly be limited just to social media, because you will also see mobile play a big role now. So it's going to be platforms like WhatsApp, it's going to be WeChats of the world, it's going to be the BBMs of the world. That's if they resurface in a big way, which is also going to decide where is content going to play a role, not just the web, but also mobile.
Great. So the next question is by Varun Kapoor. He wants to know, can brands only survive through organic growth on social media? And how sustainable is that?
Uh, they can. There is no, if you have great content, there is no way why you wouldn't survive, why wouldn't you survive? And at the end of the day, it's also about what is it that you as a brand are looking to achieve from social media. So are you playing the numbers game? Are you looking at big numbers? Are you looking at big, better engagement? You can always have a huge base and dismally low engagement rates, but there are brands who might not have been big in terms of the actual numbers, but within the numbers that they have extremely high engagement rates. So, that kind of makes a lot of sense, because you have a pool of people who are heavily invested in you and who are taking the effort to engage with you, and, who are really brand ambassadors in that sense for you. So it is possible to have organic growth. It is going to be slower. One needs to accept that. But if at the end of the day it syncs in with what your eventual marketing objectives are, then why not?
Great. So it depends on the objective and the results that you want.
Yes.
So another question is asked by Vivek Singh. He wants to know, um, want to know different social media platforms for promoting movies. How, and the objective is to create the buzz before the release of the movies on social media.
Movies, I mean, by virtue of the fact that it's entertainment and it does so beautifully in India, there's obviously YouTube, there is obviously Facebook, which helps you build a lot of virality. There is obviously Twitter. Come up with an interesting hashtag, get it a trend, get people to talk about it. Then why not? As in, for movies, I think these platforms work beautifully. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they work fabulously well.
Great. So I think an interesting question by Sunath, which we will be missing for quite some time. We've been talking a lot about brand promotions, brand building, brand communication reinforcement. But how about lead generation? Do you think that lead generation through social media, is it effective? And what role does a content play in the picture, in the context of lead generation?
Sure. So it is effective, and I'll just take a banking example for you. So what we do is, we work with HDFC Bank, and they have a lot of these offers. Now, to promote these offers, we obviously look at content in a big way. So the idea is, if I'm talking about offers that they have on travel, let's say, how do I make my content look very interesting through the use of text and images, and then I link it back. So for me to measure whether that's worked or not, I can always do it from the one is obviously likes, comments, and shares, and also to see how many people have actually clicked on the link and gone to it. So we do tend to see people clicking, going back, and those are the kind of things that we measure to see with how many leads have got generated.
Got that. And just to add to that, at Digital Vidya, Facebook is one of our lead generation channel, even though we generate more leads through Facebook ads than through Facebook page. And but at the end of it, you really need to calculate your overall cost of customer acquisition and see if it is making sense
Correct.
in your business.
Correct. Absolutely.
Great. So another question is asked by Vipul. He wants to know what is the difference between content marketing and content curation.
Okay, so content marketing would be about how are you going to, kind of put it out there? What is the kind of reach that you're getting for your, for your content? What's the kind of organic and inorganic means that you're going to be doing to make sure that your content reaches out there? Curating is ensuring that they use the right kind of, words, hashtags, meta tags, to ensure that your content becomes easily searchable, easily findable in that sense. So that's the difference between curation and marketing. So curation would also be a function of, the kind of words that you use, the kind of text that you use to ensure that your content is curated and is easily searchable and remains there for a long time for people to kind of easily come across.
Great. Okay, a last question now, since it's time. So Navya, she wants to know for B2B organization, which is the best channel for lead generation, Facebook or LinkedIn? What do you suggest?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Great.
Yes.
So that's really short and simple. Great. So guys, if you have any further question, what I would recommend is that we would be, by the way, sending an email in the next couple of days with a link to the recording as well, and we'll also do a blog post on this this session, and then you can put it as a comment in that blog post, and we will I'll be active, and I would request Sandhya also to be active there, and we'll both respond to your questions.
Absolutely.
So that's it from our side. Really want to thank Sandhya for taking time out. It's been a very informative session for me as well, and I'm sure everyone has got good value out of it. Thank you very much for taking time out. Yeah, thanks.
So much.
So thank you everyone for your participation. Yeah, the session is closed. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.